Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
See everyone. We have a quorum in our IAC meeting today. It is Thursday, November the 12th. It is 9 o'clock, and we're going to begin with the approval of the minutes, contract awards, and approval of revisions to previously approved contracts. This is part of the consent agenda. I would like to have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved by Denise. Seconded by Eberhard. All in favor, please show or say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Mr. Schoen?
The motion carried.
Thank you very much. Let's move on now, and we will have our finance and business manager, Wanda Asensio, is going to present the Prince George's County rescission of fiscal year 18 and fiscal year 19 CIP projects. Good morning, Wanda.
Good morning, Madam Chair and board members. I will be presenting the rescission of the FY 2018 and 2019 capital improvement projects for Prince George County. For a little background information, Education Article 5-303 states any funds approved for a county for a project that has not been contracted for within 2 years of the approval of the project shall be one, available for another eligible project in the county in the current fiscal year, or reserved for eligible projects in the county in the next fiscal year, in addition to the new funds allocated for projects in the county in the next fiscal year. It may not supplant new funds allocated in the next fiscal year or in later fiscal years. Consistent with this statute, IAC staff are recommending approval of an accounting adjustment to transfer $533,000 for the Dwight D. Eisenhower Chilling Cooling Tower project, which was allocated in 2017 to the fund reserve for Prince George's County. Additionally, in a letter dated May 18, 2020, Prince George County Public Schools requested a rescission of 4 FY 2019 capital improvement projects, systemic renovation projects shown in the table below. These projects were approved by the Interagency Committee on School Construction in May 2019, and in accordance with the educational article, these projects were required to be contracted within 2 years of project approval. However, under the IAC's extension of the CIP deadlines under the governor's executive order dated March 12, 2020, entitled Extending Certain Licenses, Permits, Registrations, and Other Governmental Authorizations, and authorizing suspension of legal time requirements, Prince George has requested rescission of these projects. PG County Public Schools indicates that they have been able to successfully execute some of the projects under related facility improvements, or have found the subject facilities warrant modification to the original scale and budget significant enough to require a new funding plan.
Questions for Wanda. And Bob, maybe you could, because I'm not sure we've had this issue come up. Could you explain this process a little bit to everyone that's listening, as well as our new members?
Yes, I certainly can. And it's I want to frame it by saying it's why we are pushing so hard to get clear indication of what funding is available to every LEA ahead of time, and then to do planning and have project development before they come for the money. The law allows projects, we believe initially it was intended to allow LEAs to used the money that they saved after they delivered projects and brought them in more efficiently. But in fact, it also works to allow them to keep those dollars after the 2-year deadline clock runs out that they have been allocated, and they get to reuse them again. This is, we have heard it before in the commission. We've talked about it with Baltimore City, where we had our first field manager began to become involved. Now we have more field managers, and it's what these regional managers are, including Prince George's. We are working with them. I'll mention more of this again later, but we're working with Prince George's to better align their projects and their needs from a portfolio perspective going forward. So the fact that they didn't get these projects along is in strict compliance with the law. They have to revert these dollars, and they will be able to use them again. The answer to not doing this is our move from grant management to facility management, where we help the LEAs ensure that they have good projects lined up and from the perspective of the highest efficiency of the spending. And I do want to say, as I have with Baltimore City previously, Prince George's is making good progress in that direction. It's a long way. We have a lot of other LEAs that are not as good as they want to be in this respect either. So it's a work in progress. I'm glad that they're going to be able to move forward with better projects, but it's too bad that these dollars have been sitting on the shelf.
Thank you, Bob. That's a great explanation. Are there any questions for Bob on this before we have a motion? I think that was a great explanation. Thank you. We have a motion to approve. Well, first of all, Wanda, could you read the motion? I'm sorry.
Okay. To approve, the motion is to approve an accounting adjustment to show the reversion of $533,000 for the Prince George County Dwight Eisenhower project as required by the educational article. 2, the rescission of funding approval for the 4 projects totaling $16,518,000 for Prince George County Public Schools. And 3, the transfer of the FY 2018 CIP allocation of $533,000 and FY 2019 CIP allocation of $16,518,000 to the statewide reserve appropriation account for Prince George County Public Schools.
All right. Do we have? Go ahead. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Gibbons. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Senator Casemeyer. All in favor, please show or say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Mr. Schoen?
The motion carried unanimously.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Wanda.
Thank you. Enjoy your day.
Thank you. You too. And now in section 3, pages 17, Kim Spivey, our Deputy Director of Administration, will bring forward the approval of Baltimore City property disposition, Langston Hughes. Good morning, Kim.
Good morning, Dr. Salmon. Yes, this morning we have before you a request for the disposition of Langston Hughes building in Baltimore City. The property has been closed and followed all of the approvals. The final disposition that Baltimore City is requesting is for them to transfer ownership by sale of $1 to the Youth Education Services, which is a nonprofit organization. Are there any questions regarding this transfer?
Any questions for Denise? I'm sorry, for Kim. I was looking at Denise. All right. Could you read the motion, please, Kim?
To approve the disposition of the Langston Hughes building located at 5001 Reisterstown Road, Baltimore, Maryland, 21215 by the Mayor and City Council of Baltimore to the Youth Educational Services, a 501c3 nonprofit organization, for $1.
Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
All right, Ms. Everhart, motion, Mr. Gibbons seconded. All in favor, please show or say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Mr. Schoen?
The motion carried unanimously.
Great, thank you so much, Kim.
Thank you.
And now, in your agenda, pages 18 to 20, we have Fred Mason, our School Facilities Branch Chief, who's going to bring forth a request from Anne Arundel North County Comar waiver.
Good morning, Superintendent Salmon and Commissioners. The item before you is to waive certain sections of COMAR to enable the eligibility for state funding in the fiscal year 22 of HVAC, fire safety, and electrical projects at North County High School and Anne Arundel County. Currently, COMAR does not allow for state funding of systemic renovation projects if a school system has proceeded to bidding before IAC approval of a project. These projects had received a B rating in the fiscal year 2021 capital improvement program. This means the projects were eligible for future funding, but deferred due to state fiscal constraints. Anne Arundel County interpreted this determination of eligibility as akin to approval, proceeded with designing and bidding, and the projects are underway. They have requested funding for the projects in the FY22 CIP. They identified other instances of systemic renovation projects of theirs proceeding slightly in advance of IAC approval, receiving funding after proceeding, and receiving contract approval. Although there have been prior errors on both sides, Anne Arundel County Public Schools was proceeding in good faith to improve the educational environment for the students of North County High School. We recommend approval of the waiver of COMAR to allow for the projects to receive state funding in the FY22 CIP. We also recognize that the largest room in the world is the room for improvement. In the near term, we will clarify the definition of the B status to make it understood that while a project is eligible for future IAC approval, depending on future state funding availability, it is not approved in the current fiscal year's CIP. In the longer term, we would bring forth recommended changes to COMAR to allow LEAs to proceed with systemic renovation projects in advance of state funding as long as eligibility has been established and design reviews completed. This would be in alignment with the current practice for major construction projects. I'll respond to any questions.
Questions for Fred? I think that sounds pretty reasonable. Fred, could you read that statement again about, I think that was very clever.
Yes, and I didn't come up with it. I'll give credit to Melvin Forbes, who serves with me on the Maryland Correctional Enterprises Management Council, but the largest room in the world is the room for improvement.
I really like that. I am going to, copy that. That's excellent. Okay, so since we have no questions, Fred, would you read the motion?
I'll read the motion. Yes, the motion is to approve the waiver of COMAR 143902 14C1 and the COMAR 143902 03D2 as requested by Anne Arundel County Public Schools so that the FY 2022 Capital Improvement Program request for priority number 2, North County High HVAC Fire Safety, and priority number 3, North County High Technology in Maryland Schools projects will be eligible for state funding.
Thank you, Fred. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
So moved by Senator Casemeyer. Do we have a second? Second by Ms. Everhart. All in favor, please say or show. Aye.
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 Any
Thank you very
abstentions?
much.
Any dissents? All right,
The motion
Elliot.
carried. Your motion carried unanimously. Thank you.
thank you so much.
Madam
Mr.
Chair?
Yes, yes,
Could I
Bob,
comment, please?
please.
So as this came to us, we try to look at every time we have a conflict where our process may not be working towards our mission of how we can do this differently. Our mission is to a safe, healthy, and education sufficient learning environment for every child in every seat in Maryland. So of course, by them taking this project and moving it forward, rather than having to wait on us, it really made sense because we're helping the kids sooner, and it's our processes that were a little behind, and for good reason. We didn't want projects moving forward that hadn't gone through the review process that we have in place to also ensure that the taxpayers' funding is spent properly. So we're going back and looking at this. Fred said it perfectly, but I wanted to give that whole picture of everything that we do and all the decisions that we make. Thank you, Madam Chair, members.
Yes, very good point, Bob. Secretary McCord.
Yes, I'd just like to point out that this is fire and safety and an electrical issue. We're not approving an addition to a gym. We're not approving a new teacher's lounge. These are important projects. Not that that justifies the situation, but in this case, we're doing something that's very important by making sure that we're flexible in our rules. So I just wanted to point that out. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Secretary. Mr. Schoen.
And I just wanted to add, it wasn't brought up in the description, but Bob did bring this to me for review, and I had a chance to do an analysis, and consistent with the IAC's authority, I did approve for form and legal sufficiency.
That's always good to know, Mr. Schoen. We like to be on the right side of the law, that's for sure.
Yes.
All right, thank you so much. Appreciate it, Fred. And now let's move to property status change items, and we'll welcome Michael to join us to present these items. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Dr. Salmon and members of the commission. We property-related items today. The first will require action on your part. So the first one, approval for Washington County Public Schools, their element 1. Washington County requesting site approval to enable it to use 15 acres of land at 10435 Downsville, Hagerstown, which is part of the almost 45-acre parcel that the Board of Education owns and occupies with its administrative offices, and they would like to construct an elementary school there. The school portion of the parcel is undeveloped and fronts on Downsville Pike, and in fact, IAC staff and designees visited the site last year during our summer meeting with them. In 2013, the Board of Education purchased the site, which includes a 143,000 square foot building that houses its administrative headquarters. It's the only site that the Board of Education considered for replacement school, given that it was owned by the Board of Education and has adequate acreage for new. The FMP has identified the site for a new school to replace Hickory and Fountain schools with the goal of opening in 2024, to accommodate a state-rated capacity of 785 students, and it is currently designated in planning documents as elementary school number 1. State clearinghouse review was completed in August of this year, and the Maryland Department of Transportation noted that because of the location, it may require an SHA act as Downsville Pike is a state roadway. The Board of Education approved the site in 2013. No other issues were flagged. Would you like me to go ahead and read the motion, or are there any questions on it?
Yes, I'm sorry, I was muted. I said, please read the motion.
Okay. The motion is to approve the use by the Washington County Board of Education of 15 acres of land at 10435 Downsville Pike in Hagerstown, Maryland, 21740, for the construction of a new elementary school to replace 2 existing elementary schools, adhering to the actions identified in the State Clearinghouse Review, State Identifier MD 20200707-0581.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to approve? That would be Ms. Avara and Ms. Eberhardt, seconded. All in favor, please show or say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. All right, Michael, let's move to page 23 of the agenda for the second item.
Okay. The second item is for site acquisition and approval by the Montgomery County Public Schools for Gaithersburg Cluster Elementary School number 8. In this case, the Montgomery County Board of Education is requesting approval from the IAC to acquire from the city of Gaithersburg 5.71 acres of land at 400 Victory Farm Lane in Gaithersburg, known as Kelly Park, to construct Gaithersburg Cluster Elementary School number 8. The Kelly Park site was the first choice among 10 potential sites that the Montgomery County Public Schools evaluated for this project. The property is being dedicated by the city of Gaithersburg to the Board of Education at no cost per a land acquisition agreement that was signed by both parties in June. The school will be designed to accommodate a state-rated capacity of 740 students in kindergarten through 5th grade, with the goal of addressing enrollment growth. Right now, work on the project is expected to begin in January 2021, and the school is tentatively scheduled to open in fall of 2022. Although the site is an existing park, the Board of Education intends to develop an agreement with the city of Gaithersburg for the shared use of the school playground will also be available to the public during off-school hours. The proposed property, which is owned by the city, is being conveyed to the Board of Public Schools in compliance with the resolution adopted by the city in April. Under the state approval process, after the state approval process is complete, the deed from the city of Gaithersburg will be recorded with Maryland Land Records. Again, state clearinghouse review was completed on this project in 2020, in August of 2020, and the Board of Education approved the site in March of 2018. No issues were flagged as part of the clearinghouse review.
Any questions for Michael? We have a motion to approve.
You want?
Oh, I'm sorry, Michael. Please read the motion.
Sure. There's a lot of information here. The motion here is to approve the acquisition by the Montgomery County Board of Education of 5.71 acres of land known as Kelly Park at 400 Farm Lane in Gaithersburg, Maryland 20877 from the city of Gaithersburg for the construction of and future use by Gaithersburg Cluster Elementary School number 8, adhering to the actions identified in the State Clearinghouse Review, State Identifier MD 2020-0782.
Now, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
So moved by Senator Casemeyer. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Denise. All in favor, please show or say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Mr. Schoen?
The motion carried.
Excellent. Thank you, Michael. Let's move to the third item for approval, which is on page 25 of your agenda.
Thank you. Yes, the third item is an easement of more than 1 acre, which does require IAC approval, although many of the easements were additional items as is the fourth item. In this case, it is an easement for forest conservation adjacent to John F. Kennedy High School. It is approximately 2.7 acres along Randolph Road, which is adjacent to the school. One provision, and it's going to be an easement to the Maryland National Park and Planning Commission, and under their development approval requires the forest conservation easement for this project. The easement will not affect any land that could be used for school programming or recreational activities, and will benefit both the school site and the community by preserving sensitive environmental areas.
Thank you. Could you read the motion, Michael?
Yes. The motion here is to approve the dedication of a forest conservation easement by the Montgomery County Board of Education of 2.7 acres of land adjacent to John F. Brand 0902, the Maryland National Park and Planning Commission to protect and prevent alteration, construction, or destruction of sensitive environmental forest buffers at the John F. Kennedy site, as required by MCPBC's development approval process and the Montgomery County Code.
Thank you, Michael. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
All right, Ms. Eberhardt has the motion and Ms. Severa has the second. All in favor, please say or show aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Mr. Schoen.
The motion carried.
Thank you very much. And then, Michael, the next is just an informational item. Would you please go ahead with page 26 in the agenda?
Yes, so because this one is less than an acre, it doesn't require approval, but it's a similar forest conservation easement of 0.31 acres at Colonel E. Brookley Middle School.
Any questions for Michael on that particular item? Seeing none, thank you very much, Michael.
Thank you.
All right, now we're going to move on to section 6 of the agenda with Arabia Davis, who is our funding program manager, to talk about the fiscal year 18 qualified zone academy bond allocations, which begins on page 27 of your agenda.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
220,000 in FY 2018 qualified zone academy bond funding remains available for allocation. Montgomery County has identified 5 projects that are ready to go, and funding will be expended by the deadline of December 15th. Staff have reviewed the projects and determined that it meets the intent of the program. I'm available for questions.
Questions for Arabia? Secretary Churchill.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Arabia. I just have a question. I'm a believer that any dollar that's available should always be captured. It's good that, of course, that Montgomery County was able to come up with projects. I was curious why other LEAs may have chose to take advantage of this. Is every LEA notified of the available funds?
So we have a list of the LEAs that have participated. Not all 24 LEAs have participated in this program, and we had reached out to a number, not all. Montgomery County had projects that we thought could use the additional dollars. Baltimore County, we reached out to them to see if they had projects that could use the additional dollars. And for the most part, a number of the LEAs could not meet that expenditure deadline of December. And,
Totally understand how that can happen. So I just want to make sure everyone was aware that all LEAs had the opportunity to participate. And kudos to Montgomery County for having projects ready to go. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Secretary. It's a good point to make. I appreciate you doing that. All right, any other questions for Arabia? All right, Arabia, would you read the motion, please?
yes, to approve the FY 2018 QZ funding totaling $220,000 for 5 projects in Montgomery County as presented in this item.
Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Gibbons, seconded by Secretary Churchill. All in favor, please show or say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Mr. Schoen.
And the motion carried.
Great, thank you. Arabia, you're going to move into the fiscal year 22 CIP preliminary requests. These are found on pages 28 through 38 of your agenda. Arabia, please proceed.
Yes, each year, the Capital Improvement Program is required to be approved by the IAC. Today, the 214 applications totaling a little more than $713 million. The CIP process typically begins in July with the release of the CIP instructions and concludes by June with the publication of the final CIP document. In Staff will be recommending $210 million, which is 75% of the preliminary capital budget, which in the past has been $280 million. However, given these uncertain times, we are not quite sure what that figure will be. Additional recommendations will be presented to you in February and finally in May. To determine eligibility, certain requirements must be met. For example, is the school being adequately utilized? Can the funding be spent right away? Does it meet the 15-year life cycle requirement? Is the building in such distress that rather than replacing the roof or HVAC system, should the LEA consider renewing the entire building? One of the challenges LEAs are facing due to COVID is fluctuating enrollments. More children are being homeschooled or transferring to private schools. However, the expectation is that when the crisis is over, students will be able to return to their home school. One way to combat this challenge of fluctuating enrollments is that staff are allowing the use of last year's enrollments to justify the need for more seats. Another issue staff have been faced with is identifying shovel-ready projects. While the issue does pose a dilemma, as Bob mentioned earlier, we now have regional facility managers on board working with the school officials at the conception of a project through the construction phase. We also have a strong facility maintenance group working with the LEAs on their preventive maintenance efforts. Bob, would you like to jump in and talk about a possible banking system for targeted allocations?
Yes, thank you, Arabia, Madam Chair, members. Kind of building off of what I said previously, we of course want to have projects that are getting the maximum use of the state and local dollars. Everybody has certainly recognized the importance of total cost of ownership and making sure from a portfolio perspective that their spending is increasing their overall portfolio of schools and helping the most children as quickly as possible. This has caught a number of the LEAs in behind because they recognize that moving forward with Band-Aid projects has not paid off. And in fact, maybe somewhere along the way, some of these that have been slow rolled it's been good in the end because they weren't the most effective projects. And we have a couple I'll point out here, starting like with Garrett, that may have a change for a reason beyond being most effective with the dollars spent or portfolio management. They have an unusual circumstance where HB1 would increase the state share from 50% to 89%. So the county is unwilling to commit at this particular point until they know if those dollars are there. That could happen at this legislative session, that change. But nevertheless, it's not a project that they can move forward at this time with the information we have. And then Prince George's. Prince George's, as I mentioned earlier, have been making good progress understanding how that they can approach things from a more effective standpoint. And a lot of the systemic projects that they and many of the other LEAs have done just to get their share and keep things moving, they've rethought that and are trying to look at more holistically at how that they do their project. Nevertheless, it has left them short this year with projects that are ready to go, that we can say that they're ready to go and that they should be funded, and they agree. So we have two things that we are talking about, and Elliot is helping us with these discussions. We will continue them, but by the December meeting, we hope to bring some recommendations. Essentially, we're trying to frame them in two different ways. One is that for the 75%, can we carve a portion of that for projects that we think are going to be able to be ready soon? Can we put a reserve in that 75% for anticipated projects rather than specific projects that are ready to go at this point. It gives a little hedge for some of the LEAs, both big and small. We also would like to look at LEAs that don't have projects, and this would be of benefit really mostly to the small LEAs, but also to people like Prince George's. If they know they have projects, they're just not ready, could they take this 10-year average dollar amount that has been very successful? It has really helped, I believe, the LEAs feel that they don't have to come and do the begging that they did in the past to get dollars. They know what their dollars are. They begin the planning early. Therefore, they get to this point and they have projects ready to go. We all agree, and they get going. If they don't, do they lose the dollars? In the past, this has been the black box, moving the dollars around. So we're going to propose, we have to talk it through, is there a way that we can do accounting for this? And if for instance, as you see on here, we have LEAs like Kent and Somerset and Talbot that don't have projects right now, and they're small amounts of money. Could those dollars be put into the bank? You know, they go on the side of the ledger. And then other LEAs like Montgomery that might have projects that are ready to go, or even LEAs that we have not, that have forward funded and we've not been able to keep up with them, or the cash flow has not been able to keep up with their projects and they're already complete. We balance those out with an understanding that the following year that those dollars would be available to the LEAs that have a negative balance on their spreadsheet. So it's something in concept. I just wanted to put it out for you to consider, and I really would appreciate any feedback. It's just informal to know if we're heading in the right direction. But again, we want to maximize the effective use of every dollar that's spent for improving the educational spaces. And we want those dollars moved as quickly as they possibly can. And we believe that we've made a lot of moves that have begun that process, and this would just be a continuous improvement.
Any comment or feedback for Bob on this issue? All right, hearing none, I guess we'll continue to explore that idea and maybe have a more discussion on that at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Oh, Secretary McCord.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's not exactly this issue, but it's the related issue of how we might account for the fluctuation in enrollments. I don't know if there's if we even have an idea, is there a magnitude of that? And is that an even dispersion across the state? Do we have children being homeschooled or going to private schools? Is that a 10% decrease? Is that a 20% decrease in enrollments? Even if it's the largest decrease that we can imagine, eventually the school space will be filled by new students coming through, and families that have one child will eventually have 3 children in the school system. So I just have no idea, and I don't think we have an idea yet of the magnitude of the fluctuation and how many students will be back when the schools are totally back in operation. I don't think we should be planning for this COVID situation as the long term. And I think that as long as the magnitude isn't too far out of whack, we have to be careful that we stay focused on making sure we have adequate space and not let COVID be the reason why 5 years from now, a different crew of people sitting on the IAC is complaining that we restricted ourselves when in fact we should have been anticipating that same family who had 1 child now has 3 and so forth. So I applaud the effort to try to keep an eye on that. And I have no idea what the magnitude is, and I don't think anybody does just yet. And it may not be system-wide. It may be some LEAs are experiencing more of a contraction than others, and it may be temporary, and it may not be temporary. But until that plays out, I think it's still wise to go on whatever path we've been going on. And I'm just saying that out loud. The State Data Center is happy to help whatever information we get to figure out these drops in enrollment, and if we can get other information, we will be happy to share it with the IAC about what we see as population trends. And we will soon get the numbers that we got from the census. We'll soon have that new information, and we'll share that also. So I think our planning horizon shouldn't be affected just yet until we get a handle on what's going on. But I think our inclination should be that we plan the way we've been planning until we have hard, good basis to say we should make any adjustments. So I'm just putting that out there because we're all still in the middle of a situation that the data is yet to come in on for us. So let's keep an eye on it, and let's imagine what kind of magnitude would make us change our mind. That's what I want us to think about. What kind of magnitude of enrollment drop would make us change our mind about how we're proceeding? So that's my commentary, and I appreciate what Bob's doing, trying to keep an eye on it.
Thank you, Secretary. Bob?
Yes, and Madam Chair, Secretary McCord, thank you for bringing that up. And members, we have met with your staff beginning 3 months ago, and we are working with MSDE to try to come up with some raw numbers. This is on the subject of understanding trends rather than annual numbers. And so we are working on that. We don't have anything to share right now. We have talked of being able to map this out in a geospatial perspective so that we can understand micro trends more, just like the CDC is doing with COVID, trying to see where it's edging. It's very similar, but it's in progress. I hope over the next couple of months that we will have more to share, and certainly by the time we get to this point next year that we have a better handle on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. We're glad to help you.
Okay, thank you. If we can turn to page 30. This document provides a summary of the FY22 project submissions. It also includes the target allocations for each LEA. In the past, we've used the 10-year average as the basis of funding. For FY22, while we looked at the 10-year average, we also analyzed funding based on student enrollments. We took a more conservative approach this year and calculated the funding at a midpoint between both averages. For example, Anne Arundel County's 10-year average was $28 million, and the formulaic funding based on enrollments was $18.5 million. The plan is to ensure that at the very least, the LEA could receive $23 million in bond funds. I'd like to take your attention to column F. The dollars amounts shown represents the LEA's funding needs, which are above the target allocation. As shown, the local school construction facility needs continue to be greater than the available funding, which is evident when you compare column F and column B, the target allocation. Pages 31 through 38 provides a summary of all the projects received as of October the 7th, 2020. We do expect to receive resubmissions from the LEAs November the 30th. I'm available to answer your questions.
Questions for Arabia? Seeing none, thank you very much, and we'll be talking about this next month.
Yes,
all right, now we're going to move on to the section on the IAC statewide facilities assessment, and Alex Donahue, our Deputy Director of Field Operations, is going to bring this item for our attention, which is on page 39 of your agenda. Good morning, Alex.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the Commission. This item is informational only, does not require IAC action. But I'm pleased to be able to provide this report on the status of our statewide facility assessment. In the 21st Century School Facilities Act, the General Assembly mandated the IAC contract with an independent third-party vendor to complete an initial statewide facilities assessment using the Educational Facilities Sufficiency Standards adopted by the IAC in May 2018. The purpose of the statewide facility assessment is to obtain reliable and comparable data on the condition and educational sufficiency of each of the nearly 1,400 active K-12 public school facilities in Maryland in order to inform decision-making around facilities planning, operations, maintenance, capital renewal, and potentially school construction funding. On September 23rd, 2020, the Board of Public Works approved the IAC's $5.8 million contract with Bureau Veritas Technical Assessments of Maryland. On September 30th, IAC staff and BV staff launched the project and set a schedule to physically assess each active K-12 public school facility over the course of 10 months. IAC staff is pleased to report that the IAC's assessment is now in the pilot phase, in which the assessment process is being tested on 3 pilot schools, each in 3 pilot districts. In December, BV is scheduled to begin assessing the remainder of the facilities statewide and continue doing so through June 2021. Staff will continue to provide updates to the IAC as the project proceeds. The assessment and the data that will come from it are crucial to decision makers at many levels of state and local government, and will substantially improve the effectiveness of the IAC in carrying out its mission of supporting a statewide portfolio of school facilities that are both educationally sufficient and fiscally sustainable, so that they will serve the needs of Maryland well and serve them well into the future.
Any questions for Alex about the statewide facilities assessment? It's been a long road, but we're happy to be where we are right now. Bob, want to make some comments?
Madam Chair, I sure would. Last month, I was a little passive in my excitement, as you could probably tell, because this had gone through the Board of Public Works. We still had a couple of obstacles, and we have gone past those. I thank Secretary Churchill so very, very much for his personal involvement in helping get that over the hump, and as well as your staff, Madam Chair, that everybody worked together and helped us out with that, as well as the business management system, which is now almost over the hump. We just have to go towards the Board of Public Works to ensure that they will support that contract. But these 2 tools are going to really allow you as the commission and all of the LEAs to work together in a very collaborative way and an effective way, an efficient way. So we're just so excited about this moving forward. And there'll be more to come. I can say that this is a very good vendor. I will also say that it's even though we had an extremely strong RFP, because this is so different from the work that they have done in the past, they're not adding up bloody bandages to come up with a big number that they only get to use 5% of the data. The LEA only gets to use 5% of the data for the available funding. This is a dynamic process that will be constantly updated and give a clear perspective of where we are now, how do we get where we need to do without having to have a bag of projects, because each of the projects then we will work on in relationship to the proposed funding flow. And that's why all of the work we've done, we began with fiscal year 20, using the averages that Arabia talked about so that we can do the planning, know what the dollars are, so that we can build actual projects that match the funding. This tool now takes it to the next level. And it will just benefit everybody, and it'll keep the public fully informed as to what's happening, what can they do, what are the results on an annual basis we'll be able to report. So I thank you all for all of the efforts. It's a very exciting time.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Alex.
Madam Chair, I apologize so much. I noticed that I skipped over a couple of pieces of information that I think the commission might be interested in having with regard to this. So if I could, I'll add those in.
Proceed.
Just a couple of things about the scope of this project. The vendor will assess each of the facilities by collecting data first from the IAC and from the LEAs and sending teams of assessors to walk each facility. The resulting data from the assessments will be made available to LEA staff for review and comment so that we get each LEA's input on the data before it's finalized. And we are hoping to reach the 50% point in March 2021. With regard to the staffing implications of the assessment, I will note that this assessment will require the involvement of most of the IAC staff members in one way or another. As Deputy Director for Field Operations, I'm serving as the contract monitor with direct project management support from our Regional Facilities Manager, Ben Kaplan, who has more than a decade of experience in facilities assessment for NASA and the U.S. Department of Defense. As you would expect, the assessment will be coordinated with the work of the Assessment and Maintenance Group. Maryland statute requires that following the completion of the assessment, the IAC shall develop standards and procedures to comprehensively update the facilities assessment such that the data is not older than 4 years. To meet this requirement, our Assessment and Maintenance Group staff will be trained by the contractor so that after the conclusion of the project, IAC staff can begin assessing Maryland school facilities for condition and educational sufficiency and updating the data for each school at least once every 4 years. The IAC staff will need additional positions to complete this requirement because our current Assessment and Maintenance Group staff will not be sufficient to execute both the maintenance effectiveness assessments we do now and the facility assessments of more than 350 facilities each year. In terms of updates of the data that will come from this, will be coming to you as appropriate as the project proceeds, and we are appreciative of the support throughout from our sister and partner agencies in carrying out this mission so that we can support the school facilities and all the LEAs so that every seat, every child in every seat has an educationally sufficient learning space in which to learn. Thank you. I stand for any questions you might have.
Thank you, Alex. Any additional questions for Alex at this point? Secretary Churchill?
Not a question. Thank you, Madam Chair, and I will be brief. I just want to state for the record, I remember when this topic came up so many years ago, and we've moved in a direction that will add transparency and a great deal of benefit to the public. So I just want to compliment all the procurement units that were involved in getting this through. There's a saying that no one likes to see how sausage is made, and in this case, this certainly is appropriate. But kudos to everyone, and we are well on our way to advancing the ball down the field with this assessment tool. So, thank you.
Thank you, Secretary. Now I have another statement I can use in my upcoming speeches. Thank you so much. I like that. All right. So, Alex, thank you very much for your work on this project. I know you have been in the weeds for a long time on this. So, glad that you can see your way out and move forward. And we look forward to your updates as we go forward. And now we'll move to our favorite presentation, because every month I would have to say that the chart gets more and more interesting because Jamie is adding more things to it, and it's just a work of art at this point. But Jamie's here to give us a report on the Baltimore City HVAC status, and it's found on pages 40 and 41 of your agenda. So good morning, Jamie.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Commission members. It is so good to see you again. I am here to deliver item 9, an informational item, a status report on Baltimore City extra $15 million for HVAC projects. I'd like to start out with a couple snapshots just to illustrate what we're up against. You can see in the chart there are 2 photos of some HVAC distribution piping at Liberty Elementary School that was constructed in 1953 with an additional renovation in 1979. So that whole building is between 41 and 67 years old. And as we know, time is a formidable foe. That said, moving to project phase, we now have 1 project in design, 2 in procurement, 8 construction, and 8 operational. That's 84% of the 19 projects are operational or under construction. I note about those final 3. The city has done a lot of work to micromanage their priorities and their scope of these jobs to make sure that they get the most out of the state funds and get what needs to get done. Moving on to project status, we have 1 project that is behind greater than 2 months. That remains the Harlem Park building, and that was a coordination issue that set it back. The good news is the city has been making hay on that and other projects, and it will be complete in the springtime. We have 2 projects that are behind less than a couple months, and 84% of all projects of the 19 are either on time, ahead, or operational. As far as contract status goes, we now have, as of last month's adjustments, $15 million or 100% of the money allocated. We now have about $10.4 million or 69% of that $15 million has been contracted. And at this time, we now have $4.6 million, or 31% of the $15 million has been expended. That brings me to one more point. The city has utilized local funds to make the most of the state investment, again, to make sure that they get the work done, what needs to get done. As I said, there was about $10.4 million of state funds that have been contracted to support these projects, but the total of approved contracts is $1.9 million, which means the city has matched state funds with $5.5 million of their own to get the most out of this money, which amounts to about a 35% local match, while the program requires a 0% local match. This concludes the Baltimore City extra $15 million for HVAC project status update for now, and I will stand for questions or comments.
Questions for Jamie?
I have a comment.
Yes,
I just wanted to say how much I appreciate this chart every time I see it. And I'm ecstatic to see all the blue on there. Woohoo!
Yes,
So.
very good. Yeah, I agree. I would have to say, though, that the pictures of the HVAC piping are very uncomfortable to look at, given the fact that, as Jamie says, time is a formidable foe. And that year is very special to me. So I let you all figure that out. But I certainly hope that those of us that are in this time frame that remember the 50s and 60s don't look like this. And that's all I'll say. Secretary McCord.
I was going to comment that I thought the pictures were remarkably similar to my uncle's bypass surgery. So just so you know.
Well, I would have to say that we've had a meeting full of great quips and sayings that we can all take forward in our work. I plan on using all 3 of these, written them down on my agenda. And I want to thank everybody for their attention. I want to thank all of our IAC staff and school facilities staff and planning staff for their presentations today, because as usual, they're very concise and informative, and we do appreciate all of your work in these very challenging times. So with that, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
So moved.
Moved by Denise. Do we have a second? Brian? All in favor, please say or show aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Mr. Schoen?
The motion carried.
All right. Everyone stay safe. Please
You too.
continue to be
Bye-bye.
careful. Use your good judgment. Wash your hands. Social distance. Take care.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
You too.
Thanks to everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.